is Jason Flame. Today is Friday, June 30th, and I am the host of the Master Motivation Podcast. Excited to host 7 members here of our American Tang Soo Alliance, founded by Great Grandmaster Dennis Ichikawa. And this is going to be a fun, interactive conversation. I know that we're going to have a lot of students from the different schools tuning in, and we would love to hear your questions and being interactive with us today. So I'm going to just jump right in, and I want to allow everybody to introduce themselves very quickly. And why don't we start at the top for me, which is Frankie McConnell.
All right, Frankie McConnell. I've been in acting since '94. I'm on my 29th year out here in the desert. Good to see some of you guys passing through on the way to Vegas sometimes.
All right, Mr. Cox.
Yes, sir. My name is Mark Cox. I'm probably one of Mr. I's oldest students here on the, not in age, but been around enough. Everybody knows my number 100. That's because I'm Mr. Ichikawa's number 100th black belt. So everything you see, that's where it came from.
Mr. Kemmer.
Yes, I'm Brandon Kemmer. I own a school called Cutting Edge Karate and Krav Maga. I'm a black belt under Mr. Mark Cox, and been trained under Grandmaster Ichikawa as well, and also Jason, and just trained with all of these awesome people here on this podcast, and I'm excited to be here today.
All right, Justin Ichikawa.
Hello, my name is Justin Ichikawa. I've been training with Great Grandmaster since I was 0 years old. And I am a 7th degree black belt. We own a school called the ATSDA Karate Studio in Thousand Oaks, California. And he's probably one of the greatest instructors that I've ever had the chance to work with and meet. And I love him.
Patrick Prager.
Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Prager. I started training in Tang Soo around 1996 with Grandmaster Cox. And in 2016, I opened up a school called The Edge Martial Arts in Santa Clarita, California. I also have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and I've been doing that for about 6 years.
Amazing. Awesome. Again, my name is Jason Flame, owner and chief instructor at Moorpark Karate and Krav Maga. I have been privileged and honored to train with every person here on this screen, most notably starting in 1985 with Grandmaster Ichikawa at the T.O. Westlake Karate Studio. Before it was the T.O. Westlake Karate Studio, it was the Thousand Oaks Recreation Center. And then in 1993, I started training with Mr. Mark Cox and earned black belts with both. Number 201 with Grandmaster Ichikawa, number 23 with Mr. Cox. I enjoy training in Krav Maga as well. And that's me for now. Let's turn it over to Great Grandmaster Dennis Ichikawa.
I feel real old. I started in 1970. That was in the dark ages with some obscure man named Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson, and I had the honor of going through the old age of karate before jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga and weapons and anything like that. All we did is work out and fight and go to tournaments. No safety equipment. It was blood and guts era. It was interesting era. I got to meet and hang out with a lot of Hall of Famers, and I never thought that my legacy would carry on to this day for all you people to be involved with. So it warms my heart to feel that you all are part of this journey that I'm taking through the martial arts, and welcome.
Well, you have created quite the legacy with all of these school owners here and several others that couldn't make it on today. Your reach starting from 1970 and has expanded out to thousands of black belts and reached hundreds of thousands, if not more, people in the world that have trained in American Tang Soo. One of my favorite things was our Wednesday night forms workout, and it wasn't ever really the forms workout that was the fun part for me. It was always the stories that you would tell and how excited we would be to hear a new story about somebody else or something else that happened. So I'm excited for everybody to get a chance just to ask you a question, relating to training in martial arts, creating the American Tang Soo Alliance. The gloves are off. Anything you guys want to ask. So, Mr. Cox, I'm going to let you ask Mr. Ichikawa a question first.
Sure. I'll ask Mr. I something. Mr. Ichikawa, have you not seen a difference in the last decade of parents And I'd like to know how you are dealing with parents are still the same when they want to bring a child in and they want to learn how to. My kid has no confidence, but on the same time they're coddled on the side and not letting us coach the way that we need to coach, but they want to have a change for the kid, but yet they don't really feel that. I feel that this generation of parents, I've had a major difference in that. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes, parents have changed a lot, but that's one of the reasons why we're in business, because they are incompetent. Well, I'm not going to. Well, that's kind of a harsh term. But they don't want to discipline. They don't want to discipline their kids. So guess what they do? They bring them to us. And that's why we're. I guess we should thank them for being like that, because if they could control their kids, they might not come to martial arts. I think over everything else, the self-control, the discipline, the respect that we teach, I think that's more important than even the physical self-defense ability.
Have you not noticed? I'm sorry, just let me just do this one point before he gets off, sir. Have you not noticed? I've talked to some of these moms now, and it's the first time ever too. I even have some dads that are in this lane. I've never had dads in this lane where they're coddling their kids. I've never had that, but I've talked to some of the moms, and they say, and they agree with what I say. I said, you guys are just, you almost don't want anything to fail for your kids, or you don't want them to fail. You don't want to see them grow. And they said that is true. And I've had it where they say that's why they're here, because this is what we do. And then I catch myself still doing it here. So I guess it's a lesson for the parents as long as it is for the kids, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. We're training the parents.
So
we're trying to, anyhow. It's difficult.
Well, how many people?
Some parents are the drop-off parents are the toughest ones to deal with, because they just see the beginning and end of class and that's it.
How many of you are a little bit younger on the call? Brandon, Patrick, Justin, myself started teaching before you had kids, or before you were even old enough to have kids, and you had parents asking you for advice on how to parent their child, right? I mean, everybody's had that. Yeah. Everybody's had that happen. I think what's really great too is that when we create the culture in our school, which Mr. Ichikawa, Mr. Cox, I know all of us have partnered with these parents, and we're a team, right? And once we can come together as a team and figure out what it is they want and how we can help them, then we can kind of move, because we have our agenda, right? But the parents bring us for their agenda, and somehow we kind of have to mesh those two together so that we really help our students grow in their personal development. Comment here from a guest. Let's see if it'll pop up there. But we got Marcus Brown. You guys all know Mr. Brown.
Marcus Brown.
That's old school name there, right? Nice panel there. Great martial artists and more than great men. Mark Cox and Mr. I have had an impact on the person I am today. A lot of memories. Well, we're gonna keep talking about these memories here. I want to move on and why don't we let Brandon Kemmer ask the next question?
Sure. I know, being part of the legacy of Chuck Norris is interesting to a lot of people. So I was wondering if you could share maybe an interesting Chuck Norris story, or what are your favorite Chuck Norris stories throughout the years?
That's a tough question. There's so many.
We have time. Don't worry. We have time.
Well, the first contact I had with Chuck Norris was not on the mat. It was just a meet and greet type thing. He was there, and I was just amazed. I thought he was this hardcore fighter, tournament fighter, which he was, but he was such an easygoing gentleman off the mat that he had two personas. He had on the mat persona and off the mat persona. And when he was, I saw him compete, and it was like, it was a different person. Then I saw him in everyday life, and he says, everybody says, "Oh, Mr. Norris, Mr. Norris." He says, "No, just call me Chuck. I'm just Chuck." Okay. His real name was Carlos, but only the old guys called him Carlos. But he was always Mr. Norris to me. We didn't go by master, grandmaster, all that stuff. It was just, and when I started, if somebody I saw a couple of people test and make black belt. If they weren't a lead instructor, they were gone. I didn't know what happened to them. Did they go to karate purgatory or something after they made black belt? there was no such thing as a second or third or a master in those days. The head instructor was usually a second degree or first degree black belt. And then there was Mr. Johnson, Mr. Norris, and that was it. So
when did the titles get put in there, like of master?
That's from you guys. You guys wanted titles. You guys wanted me to have a title.
Of course we did.
Well, I think if the history, if I'm remembering correctly, when we had several members go to Korea, that's when the black belt with the red stripe came in, and all those terms and titles really were put into effect.
The 50th anniversary of Tang Soo, the real excuse me, Mark Cox, but the real Altai group went there. I think Ercolano went, and I forgot who else went too. People like that.
Albert Silva, Liedemann von Hoff.
But who knows? Name dropping. No, but the Chuck Norris, two-person Chuck Norris, on the mat, off the mat, because he was a truly nice person. And that's one of the reasons why his organization didn't make it, because he was too nice. People walked all over him like that. So Pat Johnson was his enforcer. So that helped a little bit. But when they broke ties and went their own ways, then everything fell apart. And that's another story.
All right. Good for you, Brandon. All right. Let's hear a question from your son, Justin Ichikawa.
Oh boy. When did you realize that having a son was like the best idea? No. What I want to know is, when did you decide that you wanted to own your own school? I don't think this is a question that I've ever asked you. When did you decide you wanted to own your own school? What was the purpose behind it? Obviously, I'm going to ask, do you regret it, or is there anything you regret about it? Would you rather have done something else, or can you feel like this is the only thing you ever wanted to do?
Well, most of the things in my life were instigated or suggested to me by somebody who's very close to you, a woman who's very close in your life, your mother. And, we're we just celebrated our 49th anniversary. So something must be going right in our family. But she's one of the inspirations and motivations behind a lot of things I do. When the Norris organization broke up shortly after I made my black belt in 1973, I was forced to make a career life-changing decision. What do I do? I was only trained to do martial arts. I worked in the grocery business during college, but I didn't want to go back to the grocery store. That's not future. So my wife says, why don't you just open up your own studio? You know enough. They trained you, you manage, you teach. But I was just a brand new rookie first degree black belt. And we all know what it's like to be a rookie first degree. We're not in a position to run a business and train other black belts. So I didn't have the tutelage that you guys had. You guys all had people that you worked under, that you got to learn from and then expand from them. But they didn't really do that to us because, as I said, it was just business. It wasn't, the martial arts business wasn't as important as the business plan, making money. So the head instructor at the studio that we taught at in Sherman Oaks, Harold Gross, he and I both sat down and said, okay, we're going to open up our own studio. So we started looking for a place before the organization officially broke up. And we found a location, we signed a lease, and we started making our plans. One day we were at the Sherman Oaks studio, and Chuck Norris, Pat Johnson, and his attorney walked in the back door. Oh boy. I said, uh-oh, look who's here. So we sat up and they came in, and they gave us a restraining order that we were not allowed to use any of their information to solicit the students. He says they knew about that we were looking for a place. There was some leak in there. I don't know, a mole. Somebody told them. I didn't think we talked that much. We kept it on the hush hush, but they put a restraining order on us that we could not, and we had a 5-mile radius that we could not open up a school. They made us sign that. Otherwise, they would sue us. So we signed that non-competition thing. And that's how we started the Tarzana Karate Studio. Shortly after that, they said, okay, we want you to pack up and we want you to leave. Just like that. So we didn't leave on the best of terms.
I've had a few students do that. I get it.
I've had students do that.
I like to smash them, but that's just me.
You know, after all you give them, they treat you like that.
Well, now look what happened for you, right? You left, on different terms, but all of the people here, I believe, either asked your blessing or asked Mr. Cox's blessing, and now you've really truly been able to expand and create, what we have here now.
Right. That was probably the best thing that happened to me, huh? Them kicking me out.
Every setback has an awesome comeback,
Right.
sir.
Right.
All right, Patrick Prager, do you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Grandmaster I, that one of your strengths is your openness to letting your students kind of add to the martial art. Whether it's Grandmaster Cox bringing in Krav Maga or everyone doing jiu-jitsu now. But I was, a lot of people talk about the modernization of martial arts and how things keep improving and going forward. But I was wondering if you think back, what you think from old school martial arts we could bring back and it would actually improve things.
This sounds very, a few years ago, Master Farbor Jacques and Mr. Cox and I did a magazine thing at his studio. He asked me a very similar question to that. So it's like deja vu. Remember that, Mark?
Yes, sir.
We did. I still have that poster of the cover of that magazine. Anyway, I was always an advocate of making our art better, because when I started, I didn't know anything about the martial arts except for, we didn't have Google in the other days. So we just, what we read in magazines, Black Belt magazine was around. So I thought, all we did is block and punch and kick and spar and go to tournaments. And that was it. There was no weapons and no extra things. We didn't even have self-defense. They didn't teach us how to get out of a bear hug or a choke. They didn't teach us because they were not equipped to do that. So I hope that I was one of the instigators of the modernization of American Tang Soo. I said, well, we wanted to learn a weapon. And so we found Master Tadashi Yamashita, who one of the scariest people in the world, but I respect him greatly. He taught us the bow. I'll never forget that day at the Church of Rocky Peak when he taught us how to use the bow.
He was yelling at you, man. I was like, what the frick is happening now?
He said, you, Sensei, come up here and show them how to do it. And I went, whoa, I just learned this with everybody else.
And then he slapped the shit out of David, my brother.
Yes, right.
Remember they did it like a one-step and just smacked the crap out of him.
Conrad Ercolano asked him, how'd you get your hand speed? And he said, come up here. And it was like a one-step. He says, throw a punch at me. He goes, like Conrad's gyrating all over the place. Anyway,
that was awesome.
Going off the subject. So we added weapon, we added the bow, and then you guys added other weapons that you liked. And then I thought, well, we don't have any ability to defend ourselves on the ground. If we were ever sparring and fell down, our instructors always said, get up. You can't defend yourself on the ground. So you're lying there, you're kicking up at the person and trying to get back up. So jiu-jitsu was added, which is a plus. And then you guys added Krav Maga, so the weapon defense was added to the art. So my vision was to have an all-encompassing martial art, and not just karate, but the other things we added. Chuck Norris was a brown belt in judo, so he taught us how to throw a lot. A lot of our one-steps had throws in them. So that was judo was added to our art even before I taught you guys. So now I believe that our art is pretty well-rounded. I can't think of very many things I would like to add to it. One of the things that we cannot change, otherwise we won't be American Tang Soo anymore, is basics, fundamentals. So Patrick, in answer to your question, old school to me means, as Kenny Broderick would say, bend your front knee and lock out your back leg. You know how many students don't have a pulling hand or can't keep their body straight on a front stance? If we could make all of our students just do that, I think our art will go on forever. Basics.
All right. Frankie, how about you? What's your question?
Well, to be honest, Justin got my question, so I had to get not the one about the sun, but the next one. I'm super proud to be a part of the ATSDA. It's what I came out here for. 1,200 miles later, I came out here. Mr. Cox says, "Yeah, you can be in the ATSDA under my instructor." So here I am. But it's been a while. So Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson. So is it true? It's true, obviously, that Chuck Norris liked to add on to the system as you did to improve. But was Pat Johnson a little more, I guess, by the book and wanted to keep it the same? Is that possibly the reason they split?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You got it there. Chuck Norris was the innovator, and Pat Johnson was the old school guy.
Okay.
And they were like the odd couple, you know. They had a great respect for each other. But when Chuck Norris brought Pat Johnson in from New York, he met him in a tournament in New York because Pat Johnson was there. He was known in that area. He was a semi-pro football player and like a NASCAR driver and a martial artist too. He was a well-rounded martial artist. So Chuck Norris met him, and Chuck Norris's organization was here in the South Bay area, Torrance, Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach. And Chuck Norris's head instructor was named Gerald Taylor, phenomenal martial artist. I just was in awe. I was a white belt and I was watching him do forms, and he was kind of built like Brandon Kemmer, long and mean, and his forms are very much like yours, Kemmer, very much like yours. Very impressive. When a long guy does great forms, it looks better than a smaller person doing great forms, I think. It was meant, especially, forms like Masai and Samdan that involves long stances and crescent kicks and things like that. Anyway, so when Chuck Norris brought Pat Johnson in, he became head instructor because he outranked Jerry Taylor. Boy, there was a big dissension in the ranks. I could feel it. There was the Pat Johnson group, the Bob Burbage group in the Valley, and then there was the Chuck Norris, the Gerald Taylor group in the South Bay, and they were at odds with each other in the same family. I remember those days. I was a white belt, so I was thinking, what is going on here? That's when we had the day I tested for black belt is the day that the Chuck Norris, Pat Johnson separated from Korea. I mean, we were getting ready to test for our black belt. We had a black belt meeting right the day of my test. And he says, Pat Johnson drew a line in the mat with his foot. He says, everybody who wants to stay with Mr. Norris and go American Tang Soo, step on that side of the line. Everybody who wants to stay with Korea, step on that side of the line. So my team is we're looking at each other going, we want to test today. We don't want to wait because who knows if we went with Korea. And we love those Korean guys, the guys that wanted to stay. We also love the guys that wanted to go American Tang Soo. So we all decided to test that day, which was a good idea at the time. And the guys, there was about 1/3 of the group stayed with Korea, and the other 2/3 went with American Tang Soo. So that was the day the split came about. That was a very historic day. But Pat Johnson always wanted to do, and he and Chuck Norris finally split up. I think it was, instead of ideologically or martial arts wise, I think it was just a business type thing. Because Chuck was doing his own thing and Pat Johnson was doing his own thing. And let me tell you, Pat Johnson in his younger days, and all due respect to him, he was a tyrant. We lived in fear of him. I respected him as my instructor, but we were also in fear of him. And I don't think that's a good thing. We don't want our students to fear us. We want them to respect us. If they respect us, then they'll love us. I think unfortunately, some of our kids respect us more than their parents. Because
I think there's a little bit of fear in that.
That's true. The parents will come and talk to Justin before they'll come and talk to me.
That's funny. That's weird. They do the same thing with Michael, the nice. I don't know why.
More approachable.
Well, let me put this question up here because I think it's a good question and a good topic since we're all on this call, and this is kind of a mini meeting as well. There's been a lot of growth along with the schools, particularly with the inception of the AKMF. Any future plans for a large-scale convention again, similar to the smaller ones of years past? What do you think, guys? Are we due for another convention?
Well, I
Yeah.
think that we speak on this quite often, and I can see. Well, all of us have a lot. We have a lot more years behind us on putting on big events, and I have a location that we can have that's relatively cheap at the church. So, for that, they would do that for me. But the thing is, it's got to be, it's got to be something that's important. That's got to be put out there. And I think Jackie has a. By the way, I love her. By the way, I cannot tell you how these awesome pictures that she does. At the last AKMF event, she stuck around and did all the black belt pictures. Man, she put all those memories online. She's kind of that hero in the background. So I'm going to give her a personal shout out. I'm trying to get her on my show, but she doesn't come on yet.
She won't even come on my show.
Well, that's you. That's you, bro. That's not me. Okay. So I think that it can happen with the inception of. With the inception of our jiu-jitsu now, I mean, I can have one of the top jiu-jitsu guys around teaching. We can have the Krav Maga. We have Tang Soo. It's just like we did. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember these conventions up at Rocky Peak Church. And I remember when we decided to do ground. That's when David Myers came up and kicked our ass. Every one of us. There's probably 80 people that he did jiu-jitsu on. And I remember this day vividly because I was Mr. Ichikawa's kind of pit bull back in those days. And I'm like, man, it's, everybody thought, oh, Mr. Cox is coming. He's going to, and I remember watching him. I'm going to get just freaking smoked by this guy. And sure enough, tapped us out. And that's when we talked about, hey, man, that's not good. That's not good at all. I remember that convention. So I think these conventions are powerful. And I think we can have a lot of fun. But I think it would have to have a serious meeting and have it organized so everybody's going to have a great time and we can have kids there and then have a separate, the kids are cut off and they're out of there and then let the adults come in and have an adult convention where they are learning some adult stuff without the kids interfering. What do you guys think of that?
Might have to have 2 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff in one day.
Could be. I'm curious. I'm curious for the people that are watching, because we probably have some of our students watching, instructors watching. What do you guys think of having, all of our schools come together and put on a seminar where we have Krav Maga, we have Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, we all can pool together so many resources, much more than in the past. But those conventions that we had in the past, the martial arts ballet. I mean, that's something for me goes back, and then Mr. Cox, you took that on and you had what you called, I believe, the special night of martial arts, and you carried that on for a couple of years. And then I grabbed a hold of that and I started doing it. And then, and then we all kind of do our own black belt spectaculars or black belt promotions. The hardest part for all of us, right, is scheduling. It's always scheduling, because coming together and putting on an event, I mean, we could definitely put it on an event. So I would love to do it. Just putting it out there. If anybody's in, we can talk more about that offline. But I want to ask my question to Mr. Ichikawa, and Tang Soo is built on our basics and built on our forms, and I have held on to it for so long because of the foundation and because of what you taught me. And you were always very adamant about that as a martial artist, especially when I went to tournaments, that we were to do forms and fighting. We weren't just kind of a one-sided martial artist. It was always, we kind of did both. But as we continue into this, modern era, and you hear with MMA, or you hear with other, schools, dropping forms or taking away the tradition. What are your thoughts when you hear about schools that are removing forms?
The first one of the guys who tested for black belt with me was named Bill Parent. He took over the Granada Hills Chuck Norris studio. He was a former gymnast.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Ichikawa froze up for a second. Hopefully that'll come back around.
Come on, Mr. I.
This
good.
This
Sometimes
will be a good,
this happens. This is live, baby. This is what happens right here.
right? Well, we're just throwing up some comments. So far, some people really like this idea of the coming together and having a convention. So
Is that Maddie? Is that your Maddie or not?
I don't think that's my Maddie. She's on vacation. She's
There we
not
go.
watching the
Okay.
podcast today.
Here we go. We're
There
back.
he is.
There he is. All right, we're just throwing up some comments, Mr. I. People are in support of the convention, by the way. But tell us about. I know you're going to talk about Bill Parent.
Bill Parent. Do you know the name?
I know Bill Parent. One of my very first tournaments was Bill Parent, Cecil Peoples, in Granada Hills.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Anyway, he was a loose cannon, shall we say. He didn't like to follow the rules. He liked to do his own thing. And so one day he calls me up and he says, Dennis, I got some news. And I said, what? He goes, I dropped forms. And I was silent for about 2 minutes. He goes, you still there? I didn't know. I'm very seldom, as Justin can tell you, I'm very seldom speechless. But at that moment, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. He says, oh, we got so much more time. We can hit the bags. We can stretch more. We have so many things we can do instead of forms. Besides, those kids don't understand what they're doing. And it's such a pain. And he used some colorful language. It's so much better without it. And about 6 or 8 months later, he closed the studio.
Oh, wow.
So needless to say, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if you don't have the forms, you lose your structure. And you just start, it's just a workout place. You know, you might as well just go to a gym. You could do the same thing at a gym.
Mm-hmm.
But what basics and forms do is give you structure, gives you a foundation that you could build all these other things off of.
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory.
You know, of course, with the inclusion of Krav Maga in my school now, you know, it's actually crossed my mind many times. You know, if I could spend more time hitting the bag and doing this, but then as soon as I teach a class or I'm doing basics or I'm doing, you know, called off hands, right? Called off hands, doing King of the Hill, right? And watching the kids' minds work, you know, because listen, some teens and adults don't want to do it. And so they have the ability to train in something that if they don't want to do this, not everybody wants to do XMA either, right? Not everybody wants to do gymnastics, but it's there for you if you want to do it. Not everybody wants to do jiu-jitsu, but it's there for you, right? But I'm watching students as they're doing their forms, and that's where I keep coming back is what you said, the structure. The structure is what keeps the younger students engaged, and there's a little more progression. You know, everybody, it's like video games. You know, you beat the first level, and now you get to go to the next level. Now you learn the new form. Now you beat that level. Now you go to the next level.
Exactly.
Dare I ask if you have any plans to add any more forms?
Oh, we talk about it. Justin and I talk about it every now and then. There are other Tang Soo forms around. I know, Frankie, you might have seen some. Have you seen any other Tang Soo?
Frankie taught us the Chill Sung forms.
The Chill Sung
Did
forms.
you learn those? Okay.
There was a couple. I knew a couple of those, but my buddy Anthony, which I don't know, he might be watching. You guys remember Anthony?
Right.
He was phenomenal at those forms. But yeah, they had 7, and then they had another 7 Yukro forms or something that the Grandmaster Wang Yi made. And I don't know if they eventually dropped the Pyongyang forms or what, but I like the American Tang Soo Form 1. I like the history with Chuck Norris in there doing it in the background of that. What was that?
Return of the Dragon.
The Return of the Dragon.
Right.
So I like the twist in that.
In Rome.
Of course, that one's from a fighting stance, so I totally dig that.
So, Mr. I, is American Tang Soo form number 1? Is that exactly the way that it was done, or did you make modifications?
No, I made modifications. I think Chuck Norris saw me doing it once. I said, "Hey, Mr. Norris, you remember this?" And of course he remembers it. He did it in the movie, but they just did a little clip of it. He didn't do the whole thing, but we added the kicks to it, and we added the other side to it. He only did one left foot forward. We added the other side. Then we got together. I forgot who was with me. I think it was Justin. Were you with us when we created number 2?
No, I wasn't there.
It was Ercolano and Mayfield, and
there was
like
2 versions of number 2, if I remember correctly.
Well, the number 2 was created off of number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 did the offense, and number 2 did the counter for us. So that's why it looks so good when you do it with partners like that.
Can I ask Grandmaster a question right along to that too?
Sure.
So back to Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson. Is it true that Chuck Norris didn't know the forms and he was just I don't know, just did the fighting, and later he added the jiu-jitsu. But did he bring Pat Johnson along because Pat Johnson was the one that knew the forms?
That might have been. I don't know if that's the gospel, but I'm guessing that's true, because I don't remember ever seeing Chuck Norris practice forms. I saw him in the last tournament internationals. He did a form, and I didn't recognize it. I think it was a design form, obviously.
Okay.
And I remember how angry he was. He was pissed because he lost. He was in first place, and all of a sudden, this guy named Byung Yu, I don't know if you've heard of him, he comes walking in, and he in his street clothes, and the Korean black belt forms were going on already, and Chuck Norris was the leader of the group because he went up first. So Byung Yu comes walking in, and I see him talking to some Korean man, and all of a sudden he's grabbing somebody's uniform, and he's going off and he's changing. He had a uniform on that said Kim on the back, and that's not his name. He's Byung Yu. So he was wearing somebody else's dobak. And somebody else's belt. So he raises his hand and he goes into the ring, and he does this phenomenal, no warm up. He does this phenomenal form I've never seen before.
Oh wow!
And he takes first place by like a 1/10 of a point over Chuck Norris.
Oh wow!
And so they bowed out, and Chuck Norris comes walking by. I said, "Congratulations for second place, Mr. Norris." And he scowls at me and he says, "I lost." Just like that. That's the competitor that he was, even on his last tournament. And after when he calmed down, after like an hour later, I said, "What form was that you did?" And he looked at me and he thought about it, and he said, "Chill Song" or something like that. He named some name. Rinte. No, he said Rinte. And he just made up that name. I know that wasn't a Tang Soo. So I learned my black belt forms from Pat Johnson and Jerry Taylor, the other guy I told you about.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then one of Pat Johnson's black belts taught me Cheji Hill. That was the form that I saw Pat Johnson doing that I didn't learn. That's the latest one we added. So we're thinking about that, huh, Jess? We'll get together, but you know how hard it's going to be to add another form. That means
super hard. We should do some more jiu-jitsu.
And then you're going to have the Flamin version and the Cox version and the McCollum version.
You don't have to worry about the Cox version, okay?
All different versions.
All right. Well, I would love to ask a question for everybody to answer. This one might take a little bit, may take the rest of the show. But I want to ask each one of you school owners, what do you think is the most important thing that you've accomplished as a school owner? What do you think has been your biggest impact as a school owner? How about Patrick Prager first?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I haven't been a school owner nearly as long as anyone else here. My school has grown rather quickly. And I've gotten a lot of students that have very special needs. So a lot of students on the spectrum, or a lot of students that have some learning disabilities, and then they're getting bullied in school, and they don't have that confidence. And I know this is kind of like a tale as old as time with martial arts, but it's definitely seeing their growth. And that's both in actually my Tang Soo and the jiu-jitsu program, where on day one, they don't socialize or interact with anyone. They can't look you in the eye. And then even 2 or 3 months later, they're mixed in with the rest of the class, and anyone who just walked in the door wouldn't be able to pick out anyone differently from anyone else in the room. So I think that's probably the biggest impact for me, what impacts me as the school owner, what makes me the most proud, especially because I have, family members that have different special needs. My dad had OCD, so I grew up around that. And that's kind of something I had in the back of my mind as I was going to open up a school. So definitely for me, that's the number one.
Awesome. How about Master Kemmer?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but I think that a lot of it is just going back into all the people and the lives that we're impacting. And there's just been so many stories just over the years of all these students that just came in that just didn't have confidence, or they were just lack discipline, that you just see their transformation over the years. And so that's been pretty cool. I think that's going to be everybody's answer on here in some sense, right? But a couple other milestones for me, just being able to add on different martial arts to the system, to our location, and it has been pretty awesome because now we do American Tang Soo, we do Krav Maga, we do Muay Thai, and we do Jiu-Jitsu. And so that's been something that's been pretty cool for me, just kind of branching out away from some of the things that I'm kind of used to. And I've got a couple Muay Thai instructors, Luke Crosby and David Estrada, that have been awesome. And they've been kind of leading that program. And now I get to kind of learn from them as well. But personally, one of the coolest things that about my journey so far in this is promoting my son to his black belt recently. And that was just, just kind of seeing how he's grown over the years and really embraced his black belt. Before, he wasn't really a kid who really liked martial arts. He kind of fought me on it a lot, and I wouldn't say fought, but he just didn't want to go to classes very often, and he wasn't really taking it seriously. And ever since he's gotten his black belt, he wants to be here all the time. He's asking to help teach classes, and he looks like a little mini version of me out there, just kind of like, taking the reins and just like warming students up and correcting them and encouraging them, and just kind of seeing the person he's becoming has been just so awesome to see, like just within the last year or so.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I know that, three of us on here, four of us, five of us, right? So Frankie, Mr. Cox, yourself, Mr. Ichikawa, myself, and sooner or later, Patrick, you'll have a black belt child in your family. But, being able to pass that on, that I think every father hopes that that's going to be an opportunity to pass that on to our son. Whether they decide to take over the business or take over our role at some point, but just being able to pass on that information. I know that I can relate to that, and several other of you can as well. Frankie, what's the biggest impact you think your school has had?
Gosh, you just said about your son, and that's so true, because it's the legacy they're going to carry on. Look at Grandmaster and his son. I mean, that's such an awesome. I mean, you could just look at those guys. Look at such a phenomenal martial arts Justin is. And my son, he's got his black belt. He's going to do his third this year. My nephew in Texas came out, did his, and my nephew that lives here is going to do his. So I think that Grandmaster has set a wonderful example for all of us to follow. That and that's what we're kind of doing. We're all adding in, what we like. For me, fitness is number one. Fitness, self-defense. That's why you're a martial artist. So I mean, that's all I can say. That's one small thing I could say, but it's in the impact it's had on just nearly every aspect of my life.
How about Justin?
Yes, sir. I didn't have I kind of wish, I feel it's like a crutch in a matter of speaking to have my father kind of us like ride the wave up, or me ride the wave up from when I was a kid to now to have this school. I kind of wish I would have had the experience that you all had to start and grind, to feel what it's like, to feel that desperation of, is this going to work? And just to do everything you can. So I'm extremely grateful for that. It's tough to say those words because I didn't get that opportunity. It's kind of like the silver spoon ideology, but at the same time, I feel that having the opportunity to have my father as my mentor, my instructor, my father throughout the course of my life has been better than any mentorship I could ever ask for. I feel it's like a paid internship, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And the things that I've got a chance to learn from everybody in this roundtable has been like anything I could have ever asked for. So it's more than just having my father as my teacher. It's having Grandmaster Cox, Grandmaster Flame, McConnell, Kemmer, Prager. All you guys have been giving me help, like on the side, if I've ever asked you independent questions about your school, about how you run things. So I feel that having this school is not just for me. It's the legacy that you all have given me, my father has given me, and then all of the things we've left behind. So to think to myself, like, what else would I do if I didn't have this school? It's like, I don't know what I would do. And it's fantastic that we have the opportunity to have that, for me to have this school, to be able to teach into, like everybody has said, to be able to give back to all these kids with special needs, give to our siblings, to our nephews, to our relatives, to be able to have it is just so grateful. It's just so amazing to be a part of it. And I don't think there's anything else I could say other than it's just a great thing to have and to be a part of, and just to change people and to watch them grow and to see these kids we've we've seen since they were 3 years old, and now they're black belts. Like Carmen, you said, your son, just like be able to see that is just so phenomenal and so fantastic. Just to watch these humans evolve and to adapt, and to know that we had this part of it. It's like that song "Daughter in the Water." It's like everything that they've done, we've taught them how to do in a matter of speaking as much as their parents had. And I think having that is just so rewarding, and it's so amazing to invoke that spirit and that attitude and that persona that the martial arts has given all of us.
Well,
That's all I really
Justin,
have to say about that.
Yeah, I will say for you, on the flip side, you're on the other side, right? Now, us as dads watching you guys go, man, I wish I would have had someone to show me. I mean, because our kids are all better than us, going to be better than us, going to go further than us. And so, sometimes I think, God, I wish I would have had, a big brother, or my dad did martial arts. So, just as much as you see it on your side of the coin, we're looking at it from the other side. And I know that your father couldn't be more proud of you, just as some of us other dads are so proud of our sons and how much they've accomplished and the what you've done with the opportunity. Because remember, you've been given an opportunity, but you could have walked away from it. You could have done something else, right? But you chose to take that opportunity and grow from it. So I think that's pretty amazing as well.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cox.
Yes. Those are definitely wise words, Justin. I've had these same conversations with Michael, because you guys you're in something. And I know that I've had these words with Michael too. I said, I wish you had the grind, because the grind is what gives you work ethic. So you're going to have to find your work ethic in other ways, whether that is getting yourself better. Because, ultimately, Justin, yourself, my son, Jason's son, they are so much better than we ever were, because they have all of our knowledge in their young body that we have accumulated over all these years. And so you're going to have your own kind of grind that you're going to have to go. So you're going to have to be on the top of your game and take it to the next level. But as far as my school goes, and the question that you had, Jason, I think that anybody here knows that I have extreme loyalty to Mr. Ichikawa. In men in my life, it goes, Mr. I is right underneath my father, right? That's where I put him in my, in the importance to me, because without him, I couldn't have done all this. My brother started, and then I was started, but I was a grown man also. And I was in my 20s and I mean, full of piss and vinegar. And I didn't do martial arts to learn how to fight. I just did martial arts so I could fight better. That's what because I was already a super aggressive dude. And then it was molded, and I couldn't afford it. And he allowed me to paint. And I remember burning midnight oil at his school, and then we would clean the mats. And I remember cleaning mirrors and stuff and going, I'm so thankful to be there, be able to have that. So I have extreme loyalty to him, and I want to make sure his legacy continues on. And I monitor that a lot. So this little school in Chatsworth that started at church, and then I opened this thing, has produced, I don't know how many schools now, right? Patrick has a school. Brandon has a school. These guys have all started with me. Carson Fortner, Clay Pearson, and now we've gotten branches off. Carson now has opened up another Savannah school. Now, Mr. Who's that? Who else am I talking about? Patrick has. Oh, Bo. Yes. Yeah, Bo for sure. And then we have another school that's going to be coming out of Clay, is in Florida now. This has all happened on this little thing in Chatsworth, this little kind of school in Chatsworth. And I don't want to say it's all about Mark Cox, but I grinded and I kept my loyalty, and I went looking for coaching to help me run a business, because I was sinking, man. I was really sinking and not knowing how to do this. And then I changed my whole format, with the Born to Win. And I know that, and when I first did all that, how many, they flopped their nose at me or speak behind my back, because, it was hard to say something to my face, but, I don't know why. But that grew my school into a whole new avenue. And I wanted Mr. Ichikawa's legacy to continue on, because as awesome as Chuck Norris is, and Pat Johnson, I got to take class with him. They don't have the branch of American Tang Soo that he does. Not even close. And so I monitor that, and I want to make sure that is kept alive. And I tell my son the same thing. I said, hey, listen, we wouldn't have this if it wasn't for Mr. I. I'm telling you right now. him letting me teach. I had a place to go, so I wasn't getting in trouble, even though I got in trouble as a young guy anyway. But I said that I want his legacy as you continue on to make sure that you represent it, and you represent it better than I did. So that's where I think my little school now. Of course we've having 700 black belts now, and then now having taken that and having another organization branch out from AKMF. But I will tell you this, and Mr. Ichikawa, you remember, like, when I was going to open up a school in the Simi Valley, I went to you and I had a conversation with you, and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. How do you feel if I don't do Tang Soo in this school? Because I don't have the instructors to do Tang Soo. I have the instructors to do Krav Maga. And you said, go ahead. And I had your blessings to do it. And so that's how I did it. But I feel that loyalty is missing in martial arts as it is. I think loyalty stops where it stops benefiting the person that needs to be loyal. They're loyal up to the point that you can't help them anymore, and then their loyalty goes elsewhere. And I've seen that in many times. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Mr. Ichikawa, but he's so different than I am. And Michael's a lot different than is, and so is Justin. But I've watched him be taken advantage of so much over like I can't stand it. You know what I mean? It just drives me crazy. And I have the same loyalty to Sergio. I just had a conversation with him yesterday about loyalty, and he says to me, he goes, "Why do you take things so personal when they're doing stuff to it?" And he goes, "Don't take it so personal." And I said, "I don't know. Maybe because you're that important to me, I take it personal." I said, "I just like to smash some fools, man, is what I like to do." And
I think you did.
And
sometimes.
yeah, I for sure did. That wall was awesome in Tarzan. I wish I had that wall. So
we
anyway,
all wish we had a piece of it.
Yeah, I know. I was so stupid not to get that. But, that's kind of where my school is. And when I look back, sometimes we're in the mix of it, so we don't really know the impact we have on everybody around us. And when I have to really sit back and sometimes be by myself to look in the school, and I'm sitting we put the cage up, and I was sitting in the cage the other day by myself, and I'm like, I cannot believe that I own this piece of property and what this city has done for me, and what I've done to help others have schools where they can make a living off their schools. I was just super proud of that private victory of myself that, the other night when I was here by myself. Matter of fact, I spent the night at the school the other night. So that's just what, that's just my 2 cents. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that loyalty, Mr. I, or what's your thought on that?
Well, you're the crown prince of loyalty. I mean, that's everybody in the alliance, everybody else who I've taught takes their lead from your loyalty. You have that, and you'll always be the most loyal person. Yeah, so I appreciate all that. And I pat you on the back for spreading my legacy out to Georgia and Florida or wherever else people are opening up schools.
Yeah, I appreciate that, sir, a lot.
I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cox. Thank you, guys. And before I let Mr. Ichikawa give his thoughts on his impact, because I think we've all kind of talked about his impact, but I want to hear it from your words. But, something I was thinking about as far as the impact that my school has had. I remember Mr. Ichikawa always telling us that martial arts is just the vehicle that helps us teach confidence and teach focus and teach all of these different things, all of this personal development. But I think when I look at my school and what the biggest impact that I've made is learning how to create leaders and learning how to teach people how important community service is, and giving back to our community is something that I feel very strongly in. I was just like Mr. Cox. Mr. Ichikawa gave us a leg up. My parents couldn't afford lessons. We painted the school. He built walls, did all the things, and never turned us away. We needed food, and we had a family that helped feed us food. We needed power to get to our 20-foot travel trailer that we were living in with the 5 of us, and we had a family that helped us. And I never forgot those things as a young kid, that someone helped me. Someone really put themselves out there to help me. And I remember telling myself very clearly, if I ever have the opportunity to help other people, if I'm in a position where I have a little bit more, that I would do that I would give back. And over the years, we've given thousands of meals to our food pantry. We have participated in Relay for Life to support cancer society, cancer survivors. We're now part of an organization called Team Wish, which, you know, feeds families and gives Christmas presents and Easter baskets to 50 families right here in Moore Park. So teaching martial arts has, for me, was always, I was so focused on the physical. Mr. Ichikawa, you can remember me as a young black belt grading students. I was the ultimate stickler on like failing everybody. I thought it was all about the physical. I was so focused on that I wasn't looking at the person inside as much. And now I see how wrong I was and how much what the impact that we can have on others. But ultimately, when I can teach one person, they could teach two more, and those two more can funnel out, and the ripple effect that it has in our community will affect our county, our state, and really ultimately, you know, when you think about it, the ripple effect can really affect the world. So I think that that's, for me, teaching leadership and focusing on community outreach has been the biggest focus for us and where we've made the biggest impact with our school. So thank you for those lessons too, Mr. Ichikawa. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So your turn.
If that's the way you guys feel, then I've done my job.
Yes, sir.
Not done yet, though.
Is there anything else, Mr. Ichikawa, that you'd like to add? You know, obviously we've talked a lot about the impact that you've had, but what are some personal feelings and thoughts from you as far as the impact?
Well, I just, a lot of people tell me, well, I run into people and they say, oh, it's Sunday. That means I got to go to work tomorrow. I can't stay out any later because I got to go to work tomorrow. I have to go to work tomorrow. They use that term. And do any of you ever think that? Oh, I've got to go teach. I've got to go to the studio tomorrow. No, I look forward to going to the studio. That's sometimes when I'm doing stuff, my wife has a honey-do list that I'm exhausted here fixing things and putting pictures up. And it's people say, you're going to retire pretty soon and exhaust myself here? No. When I go to the studio, I relax. I got total respect. I got respect for my dog here. Well, my wife respects me. Yeah, it's just.
Oh, that's so true.
So we all know that. Even if it was not our profession, I would want to teach martial arts to people to help people grow, help become better people. I don't look at my students as tuition paying entities. I look at them as people that come to me for help, and Justin, and we help them. We turn people from little insecure people, wild kids, into controlled, productive young people and adults. And that's what is fulfilling. And that's why I teach the martial arts. And that's what I tried to teach you guys. And I think you guys feel the same way about what you do too. We're fortunate that we don't have to go to work.
Yep. We get to go to the karate school. We get to be a part of it rather than we have to. I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, listen, I want to be respectful of your time and of the audience time. We are at an hour today. And, you know, I've been really happy to have several opportunities to have a roundtable podcast like this. We've had the AKMF school owners on. I've had other groups, but, you know, none of them are really as close to me as this one right here. I mean, this is where I started, right? This is, every one of you have had an impact of where my life is now, you know, whether I trained with you or I worked for you or learned from you. You know, the podcast started because of martial artists that inspired me and motivated me. I wanted to highlight those people. So this is just one of those opportunities where I can take a minute just to say thank you to everybody here. You are all amazing humans and individuals that have made a tremendous impact, not only in your schools, but much greater than that. So I hope everybody watching this will take away some great lessons and, you know, take inspiration, take motivation to take the step to do something that's closer to your goal. And just appreciate you guys. I want to give everybody one last chance to give closing thoughts or anything that you'd like to say before we go. And just one at a time real quick. Justin Ichikawa.
I think it would be great for us to have a convention again, just something that we can all, because everybody has so many different perspectives and like you said before, styles of teaching. So I think that for our students, especially the new ones who have no idea, like we have patches on the wall. It's like, what is it? ATSD? What is that? Some of our students don't even know. And therefore it sounds like the legacy is of that aspect is fizzling out. So it'd be nice to get because I would love I mean, everybody in this whole dais has taught me something, great things. And I would love for our students to learn the things that you all have taught us. And so I think that it would be great to have an Alliance convention once again. So if we have the space and the time to do it, I think that's definitely something we should discuss and put on the books.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Patrick Prager, closing thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank all you guys. You know, like I said at the beginning, I'm kind of the new kid on the block. I think I'm one of the newest schools for, being added to ATSDA since the school's only been open for a couple of years now. So, I'm just amalgamation of everyone on this panel, and I saw Mr. D pop up, all of my instructors. I'm just a product of you guys, and I'm excited to move forward as my school grows and hopefully reaches some of the amazing milestones all of you men have done. And I appreciate you bringing me into the fold and all the leadership you continue to give me, and I hope to continue that through my students.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Kemmer, closing thoughts.
Yeah, just thank you for having me on, and it's just so great to have this community of awesome men and individuals just impacting lives, and just we just grow from each other and stuff like that, and just all the lessons that we've learned along the way and everything like that is just just each one of you has impacted me and my school, and we've all influenced each other in so many different positive ways, and I just I'm just so appreciative of all of you, and that just like that we were saying earlier, that we get to go to work, and it's like it doesn't even feel like a job, or like Grandmaster was saying, it's like I tell people all the time, like I get to do something that is just I'm passionate about and that I love, and like it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like I get to come over and have some fun all day, and so it's really awesome that like iron sharpens iron, exactly right. And so cool, but appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Master Kemmer. Mr. McConnell, closing thoughts.
Well, I don't think I can say anything that hasn't already been said. It's a great group of guys. Yes, iron sharpens iron for sure. And I would look forward to a convention. We always love being part of Mr. I's organization. Great Grandmaster Ichikawa's organization. And I would love for my students to meet you guys, to meet Grandmaster. I'd love to have some outside guys come in and teach them jiu-jitsu, and have Danny from Israel to come in to do the Krav. I mean, whatever. Let's do it. I think it's great.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, your closing thoughts?
So, I'm looking at this panel. Remember when Brandon was probably 5 years old, or I'm picking up Patrick from kindergarten and bringing him to the school, when his parents couldn't do it, and I would babysit for them a certain days. I'd pick him up from school and bring him to the studio. And now these are formidable men. And I say this all the time as an older instructor, that, my jujitsu or whatever and stuff, and my martial arts gets this better, and these guys get this better, then pretty soon we're kind of on this line, and we become peers after that, and we become workout partners. And this is where I'm at in my life. Even I got to roll with my son the other day, Michael, right? And he's getting ready for this tournament, and I'm pushing him. And I was thinking, man, there was days I could just smash these kids. I can't even do that anymore. I mean, I really have to be on my game to even get after it. These guys are not kids anymore. They've become men, honorable men that become honorable partners, honorable workout, and honorable peers. And then they continue on a legacy of mine, and I still get to get on the mat with them. I could not be more proud to be your guys' instructor than I am right now. And I can't thank Mr. I enough for allowing me the time to become what I am today through your mentorship, putting me in front of things, making me uncomfortable, lecturing me, yelling at me, whatever it is that you had to do for me. But I do appreciate that. So thank you guys.
I miss that yelling. I miss that yelling at you. I haven't had a chance to get to it.
Well, I'll come and teach, man. You guys, my students love to hear the stories. I'm like, you have no clue. Okay. You think Mr. I is all this grandfatherly? Get out of here, bro. So I just really want to say that to everybody on there.
Thank you, sir.
Seeing DeRocher come on today, it's good to have him. These are some powerhouse men today, man, that are changing the world around us. And I had a little bit of part to do with that, man. It's just, I don't know. It's just kind of an awesome feeling. I almost like it, like I like trains.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, definitely a big shout out to Bo DeRocher out there who's watching, and Jose Escobar, our friend from Connected Leaders Academy, and Conrad Ercolano, Gabby Abdelgadir. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Mr. I, I'll let you give the final thoughts.
Well, I want to thank, I think we should all thank Jason Flame for putting this platform together. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be talking right now. I think we ought to do this periodically instead of just once.
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
Sir.
It's a good way to connect, and it's a good way for other people, everybody who's listening in. Thank you for listening in, everybody. Contact us if you have any questions.
All right. Well, I think that we may have to have a part 2, 3, 4, and many more. So I'll definitely be happy to put that together again so we can get on and maybe gather a few more of our friends that couldn't make it here today. So with that being said, guys, thank you for hanging out with us for the last hour. Thank you to everybody here on the panel for sharing your thoughts, your stories, your experience. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me and I can direct you to any one of these individuals. And please go to YouTube and subscribe to both Master Motivation Podcast. Justin, what's your handle on YouTube?
It's youtube.com/senseiichi.
Sensei Ichi. And then we got Mr. Cox, Beyond the Mat Podcast. Patrick Prager, you have a YouTube.
I do. It's called Karate Does Jiu-Jitsu.
You know he's got more than one YouTube, right? You know that he's got massive following because he's an artist.
Yes.
And he paints these little soldiers.
I know.
And he's got a massive following. Weird.
Hey, send them all to our podcast too,
Freaking
right?
nerd.
Will
He's a
do.
nerd.
Anybody else? Mr. Kemmer, you have a YouTube channel or somewhere you want to send everybody?
My YouTube channel, I don't use it very much, but it's Cutting Edge Karate is what the YouTube channel is. But, you can check us out on cekaratekrav.com. That would be the website.
Perfect. Mr. McConnell?
Mine's
Links?
Acting Krav Maga on YouTube.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, all one word.
All right. And everybody feel free to drop some comments with your links in this feed, and everybody will pick it up. But with that being said, guys, that is the end of the podcast today. Look forward to seeing everybody later today at 12 o'clock. Have another great guest coming up. And next week, got many more. So come check them out, guys. Go make it a great day. Go make a difference.
Tang Soo.
Bye.